So the last thing I want to do is I'm going to make a plate that's like an X plate that goes at the center line of those bars and put 4 of them on, one on each side of the X brace for the door bar. And I have to cut the roof and do the final top welding on top of the roll hoop. And after that, we'll just keep checking all the welds, make sure they're 360 and clean things up, and the cage will be done. Another little thing I needed this morning was that plate will mount the ECU to the, I guess you would want to call it the lower window channel. So you can see the ECU wires come from the engine. That's the main connector there. Probably kind of hard to see because it's dark. And then the ECU will be up there. But I do not have the ECU in because of all the welding. Even though the battery's unhooked, it's just safer to pull the ECU out because it takes like 5 seconds now. Back from lunch and thought I'd add a little race car eye candy gussets. So I did this to the front because there's not as much structure as is there in the rear. So we got them to the front door bar, we got them to the dash bar, and we've added them both sides. Yep, my light isn't right. Both of the sides of the tube on the header bar. So the back of the car is a lot stronger, so I think we will be good. I needed a way to attach the back of the seat, so we bought the mount from Kirky for the seat, but we need to attach that to the harness bar. So I got a piece of 7.5 inch by 3.5 inch 3/16 plate left over from the rocker plates, and I found it's worked really well for me in the past because there's no way I could bend something like this. So I took my plasma cutter and made some cut marks but left spots, and put this in my vise, and with a hammer or a wrench you can really easily bend this over. So I just trial fit this to make sure everything works, and the reason I bent it is I'm going to mount this to the harness bar, but in case there's a major accident I don't want a piece of steel that could potentially puncture through the back of the seat. So I just kind of bent it over, gave it a little extra strength, and when I'm happy with it I'll come through and just weld this back in. Show you what it looks like in the car. I wanted to find out where the seat belts actually sat over my shoulders. So I sat in the seat and used a Sharpie and made some marks of approximately where my seat belt would be over my shoulder blades, or not my shoulder blades, my clavicles. And then I looked down here and saw that I was probably getting interfere on both sides with this angle. Well, this isn't really structural, so I took a 45-degree line and cut that off, and that's where I came up with my 7.5 inches. So you can see where that plate is now mocked up into place. So what I'll do, I got about a little bit of clearance, but I will hold this down and tack this along the top, and then maybe even put some supports in underneath once I pull the seat out. And when I pull the seat out, I'll go ahead and cut this off at a 45-degree angle. So that should give me plenty of room for my harnesses and also keep all the sharp edges and stuff away. And when I get everything the way I want it, I'll mount the seat down with the bolts and then drill probably 5 or 6 bolt holes and put lock nuts on the back, and that should be good. So I have attached the harness bar seat back mounting plate just in 3 spots. Could probably almost pull it off if I needed to, but I'd cut it if I needed to. And then I went ahead and took these corners off so that my seat belts will come down. And now I'm going to put the seat belts back in and see how everything fits. And everything looks correct, then I'll go ahead and buzz it all in place. I almost thought I was done with tube work, but so I put the shoulder belts in and got them adjusted about right so I can't breathe. I'll back those off a little bit. and I get an angle of 30 degrees. Now the Lemons rule says 0 to, and that's without a Hans device, that's just off the back of the seat, which is pretty similar to my shoulders, height-wise. So what I'm going to have to do is add a second bar, and then I think once we have our head and neck restraint system, we'll definitely be between 0 and 15 degrees. So I'll tack that in today and bring in my Hans, or my head and neck restraint tomorrow, and see where we're at. But a little bit more tube work, but I guess from now this will be the seat mount back brace, and then we'll just put another tube over the top right in through here, and that will be the shoulder harness bar. I figured before I went ahead and put the harness bar in, I needed to make sure the seat back was bolted in correctly. So went through and bolted the seat down in position and tightened everything up, and then clamped these two together. Of course you can see I welded this in. Clamped these two together, drew a line between the bar and that fold area that I had, put 3 nice button heads in there with lock nuts, and we will move forward. I think in hindsight, if I was to do this again, yeah, this looks cool down here, but I would probably move the bar up on top and put this plate here, and then I think that would line up just about perfectly. So next time I do it, that's what I'm going to do. You learn something new every day. Figured since I hadn't done it before, I'm going to go through the procedure on how I notch a tube with my tubing notcher, which is from JD Squared. I think what I'm going to do is put a tube approximately, I don't know if you can see this or not, I just kind of got the camera set on the back of the shelf, put a tube about there. So I want to go a little bit over, so I want to go above the center line, or over the center line on that side, and over the center line on this side. So that's going to be about 25 inches. So I've got my tubing cut. Yes, it's a little long, but that's what I want. So what I'm going to do is, we know that this, of course, is horizontal, and I need to make a cut parallel with that tube in this tube. So what I'll do is come up in here, measure this angle, and it is 43 degrees. So I'll go ahead and set my tubing notcher to make a 43-degree angle cut from horizontal and notch that tube with an 1 3/4 hole saw. The next thing is positioning the tube so that we start to move material, and as you can see, this will come all the way through, and that will give us our 43-degree angle from horizontal, or 47-degree angle from perpendicular. So we're set up at 47 degree from perpendicular. So as you can see, we are pretty much through the tube, and because this is such a big angle, just want to make sure that doesn't get hung up on the end. So we'll give it one last little bit to clear that last material out. And that should be our angle. Next thing I always do is come in and do a fit check to make sure I ain't crazy off. And I think that is definitely usable. I have to do a little clean up at the very neck, but that looks pretty horizontal. So now what I need to do is move this up, and I will make a mark where the low part of the tube is. So in a sense, where this tube in the back is going to mate up, I will make a mark. Oops, can't see because my finger. I will make a mark there and there, and that is how long I'll cut it in the tubing notcher. First thing I do when I get back to the tubing notcher is I set my angle back what my next angle is going to be. So because it's going to be perpendicular to the tube on this end, I set it back to 0 degrees, and then I align this inside edge, which will be the near inside edge for the tube, up with the mark that I made. And I'll make one on each side and check to make sure they're right. The next thing I do is, because they are going to lie in the same plane, is I got a little piece of tubing here that's a cutoff, and I will put that in there, and because I can't do it I don't have 3 hands, I'll put my angle finder on there, and I will rotate this tube until this tube is 0 degrees, or is horizontal. That way I know that they are going to share the same plane, so that the hole saw is going to cut at the same angle, so when you put them in there, those 2 angles are the same. So, I'm not going to lie to you, I test fitted it really quick to make sure, because if you think about it, what I was worried about was not being able to fit in there, but then I remembered the tube was coming up, so it slides right in, and as you can see, that fit is exactly what I wanted. So now what I'll do is I'll get my angle finder out, set this horizontal, and I want to check this angle here because it's supposed to be 0 to minus 15 degrees for the harness part. So let's see what we got. So hopefully you can see. I've just got a piece of wood in there to give me an approximate location where it's going to sit. Probably goes up a second, up a little bit. And I want to check side to side. We're at 0 degrees. And then from the seat back, which you won't be able to see, we're at 2.3 degrees. But this, the harness bar, is 2 degrees higher than the seat. So I think what I'll have to do is, because I checked it with my shoulders without the Hans device on, so I think that's going to give me a little bit more height. So what I'll probably do is bring that in tomorrow and put it on myself and see how I am height-wise before I go ahead and weld that tube in. But for the notching part, I could be happier with it, and that's one reason I really like that piece of equipment, is that using your high school trigonometry, you measure your angles and just remember, is it from horizontal or is it from vertical, perpendicular. You go ahead and buzz these tubes right out. So I was always concerned about notching tubes and wasting a lot. You can get everything to fit just exactly the way you want it. Just remembering that you just need to mark this location over here on your tube, and that is the minimum part, the minimum length between those two. So I will bring my Hans device in tomorrow, and we will check this out, and we will move forward.